to the museum. We're glad everyone support in the Military Museum. We could, definitely want people to come. So if everyone can please stand with an invocation. Lord Jesus, we know that serving in the military takes a, whether they are facing difficult situations or just missing their families, we know that they need your strength. Bless them and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So everyone can have a seat now. So just recently, and thank you all for coming. So I wanted to introduce some people we have, some of our, and her husband, please stand. Mr. Danny Babin. Introduce to you our speaker, Miss Elizabeth Betsy Arsenault. A minor in history at LSU and teaches at St. Guinevere in Thibodaux, where she enjoys teaching about kids, and she's going to speak about December 7th, 1941, where Pearl Harbor was attacked by Japan.
About Pearl Harbor, and I quickly realized after my first year of teaching it, no idea what Pearl Harbor was or what it meant. So it really became my help them understand the significance of this event. And a mother to 3 children. I am forever grateful for the sacrifices and lessons students and children about the benefits of history and how we can use all of the year when my class discussed the Korean War, as that was the war that my grandfather, John Politz, bravely served in. While I loved bringing his scrapbook, protective layer on them, he also looked a little bit younger, not quite mates. Exactly how he served in the U.S. Army Infantry Division. Daddy Politz would enlighten me about my grandfather's siblings, including Joe Politz, his brother, who witnessed the attack at Pearl Harbor firsthand, along with one of my grandfather's other siblings, Rosalie Politz Ballard, who was admitted to Touro School of Nursing via the World War II Army Cadet Nursing Corps program in 1942. Upon her graduation in August of 1944, she was to go directly into the Army Nursing Corps, but fortunately World War II ended and her commitment was complete. That's when I finally understood why my grandfather had so much respect for veterans and our country, but also had so much pain when talking about his experiences. However, I had to learn all that I could about Pearl Harbor to help make sure my grandfather knew just how proud I was to have him as a strong, selfless, fierce, yet gentle man in my life. In school, I was perplexed by my first grade history teacher, Joe Cass, who displayed 12/7/1941 on his chalkboard the first day of school. Mr. Cass proceeded to inform us that when we saw this written on the board, we were to expect a pop quiz or a sneak attack. Over the groans and moans of "who gives a pop quiz?" he explained about how one Sunday morning, Lieutenant Kermit Tyler, an Army Air Force pilot who started his second day as a pursuit officer in charge of monitoring the radar, spotted planes. Yet he assumed these were U.S. Army Air Force B-17 heavy bombers on their way to Hickam Field from California. He made the fatal statement, Don't worry about it. Back in Coach Cass's class, the complaining stopped. All our eyes were locked upon Mr. Cass as he sadly told us the rest of the story. He explained that the first Japanese dive bomber appeared at 7:55 over Pearl Harbor and was part of a first wave of nearly 200 aircrafts, including torpedo planes, bombers, and fighters. Within a quarter of an hour, the various airfields at the base were subjected to savage attacks. At the same time, a massive action was directed against Kimmel's fleet. The ships anchored in the harbor made perfect targets for the Japanese bombers, and because it was a Sunday morning, a time chosen by the Japanese for maximum surprise, they were not fully manned. Most of the damage to the battleships were inflicted in the first 30 minutes of the assault. The battleship USS Arizona blew up with a tremendous explosion. Riddled with torpedoes, the USS West Virginia settled on an even keel on the bottom of the harbor. The USS Oklahoma, hit by 4 torpedoes within 5 minutes, rolled completely over, with its bottom and propeller rising above the waters of the harbor. The USS California, the flagship of the Pacific Battle Force, was torpedoed and ordered abandoned as it slowly sank in shallow water. The largest ship, USS Utah, also was sunk. Hardly a vessel escaped damage. At this point, I couldn't listen anymore to the story. I kept imagining all the anguish, hardship, and fear that all the service women and men must have felt that day. I thought of all the lasting impacts that an event like that has on your mind, how 1 hour and 15 minutes could alter your soul, how 1 hour and 15 minutes could pivot the trajectory of the United States, how this day that lives in infamy awoke a sleeping giant, and the impacts of all of that. Today, I'm my own version of Mr. Cass, and I was struck when one of my wonderful 6th grade students asked me, why would we ever want to relive those terrible moments? I thought long and hard about that. Well, there's a quote. History gives us the opportunity to learn from others' past mistakes. This quote is not true. It's faulty. We should learn from our past mistakes, but also imitate the exceptional character of so many brave people who selflessly fought for what was right and stood up to defend the rights of others. Where I teach is St. Genevieve in Thibodaux, and a core philosophy of our school is that we should all be table people. Bear with me a minute as I explain. A table person is one that has a servant's heart, who respects others. They still strive for victory, but always fight for the greater good. A table person helps others without wanting to receive accolades or recognition. A table person is one who gives of themselves freely because they know it will serve others well. A table person imitates Jesus and his humble qualities. Over the course of my 43 years, I have learned that all of you are the ultimate table people. You show us how to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good. You teach us how to live humbly and always think of others, rejecting the me first philosophy of our modern world. There is not an accolade or an award that can be bestowed on you that can accurately explain how, if all of us would live more like you, this world would be a better place. So, all I can say, on behalf of myself, my St. Genevieve students, and my family, is thank you for your service, and more importantly, for showing us to live humbly and selflessly like a table person.
Thank you very much for sharing that information. And did you take my paper? You can have it later, but I need it now.
I'm asking you.
So, I actually have my own personal story about Pearl Harbor. So, my great uncle on my mother's side died at Pearl Harbor. He was on the USS Oklahoma, the one that flipped over, and the men were trapped on there for weeks until they all died. So, the Navy must have put them in a mass grave when they finally recovered the bodies, which is probably months later. And so they identified his remains in 2018. So we actually buried my great uncle in 2019, 77 years after he died, in North Louisiana, which was a tremendous thing. I didn't know the Navy was doing that. There have been other soldiers also from Louisiana that were identified from USS Oklahoma, one in Bogalusa a few years later. And I used to always go to my grandparents' house in North Louisiana, and I would go and look at a little plaque that had his name on it and said, you know, died Pearl Harbor. And it very touching to see, you know, that, and then to get, you know, the closure of the funeral. So that was pretty amazing. So now I want to introduce to you retired General Hunt Downer, who is going to do a presentation to Mr. C.J. Christ, our founder. Hunt, there he is. Thank you.
You know, what a beautiful day to be here and to hear the story of table people. That's true of veterans. That's true of many, many people. They serve. They serve without expecting anything back, but just dignity, and they serve from the heart and from the commitment. I always say you have to know where you've been, know where you are, to know where you're going. I'm here today to talk about a person who we know where he has been. He knows where he has been. We know where he is. But when he was at one of those other places, he is now where then he thought he would be. And that is C.J. Christ. You see, he was a pilot in the Korean War. He served during that Cold War time. They call it Cold War. It was only cold because of the weather, like it is today. He served between 1949 and 1957 in the 19th Bomb Group. Flew 23 missions, bomb missions, over North Korea. Then came back, and in between all of that was in the Naval Reserve. Ultimately retired, left that, became a pilot here in Terrebonne. But that was because he knew where he had been. And the picture here is CJ as that young lieutenant in the United States Air Force. I wore blue today for the Air Force, because I used to always, and still do, tell CJ the Army did it the hard way while they were sleeping. The Air Force got an appropriation for their air base, and you would think, what would you do? You would build runways, huh? No, they built the 19th hole at the country club, and if they had any money left, they were going to spend it on the runway. Well, today we're here to honor CJ. He had a vision as a table person. He was serving all of us to preserve the memory of where not only he had been, but where we all had been. And that's those who served and our families who served by supporting us while we were gone, or while we were serving. But to preserve that memory, we're in the heart today as we stand here and look around. We're in the heart of CJ's vision, this museum. It was his vision. He started collecting, putting together things before this museum actually started in 2004. Look where we are today, out of room because of that. He wanted to protect and preserve the history to pass on to our younger people. For you see, they are the ones who know where they are now, but they have to know where we were been so they will know where they're going. And as we learn today about Pearl Harbor, the number of people who are unaware of that. I was mentioning this morning earlier at the breakfast, the number of people who don't understand Blue Star parents or Blue Star family versus a Gold Star family, because they don't know. History is trying to be erased. CJ had a vision not to let history be erased. And when you walk around this museum, you see his vision. You feel his vision. It is here. It is the vision of not just his service. That was the spark plug that got it started. It's the vision of everyone's service. The contributions, it's called Regional Military Museum. We've expanded, but it's the contributions of our region here in South Louisiana so that we're not forgotten. He did it. Blood, sweat, and tears. We're here today to honor C.J. Chris for that. We're here today, C.J. I'll have to introduce your Jeep, a blue Air Force Jeep. Now it hurts me, I'm sure the Air Force got it from the Army first. But that Jeep has been restored to respect and represent a Jeep that C.J. would have driven or ridden in during his time of service in the Korean War. Next to it is a younger C.J. Chris in uniform. And of course, over here is the memorabilia of C.J.'s picture, some of his awards, his recognition. And by the way, I just realized it's portable so I can walk with it. His airplane, his bomber, was the Miss Fortune. I have to tell you, the nose art on that plane does not look like a Miss Fortune. However, if you know nose art like that now, to be politically correct, can't be put on an aircraft. However, CJ, this Jeep is named for your bomber, the Miss Fortune. So congratulations for C.J. Chris. Now, a little special treat in recognition of C.J. Thanks to the Homer Civic Club and some of the ladies who are here today and who threatened me with my life if I would introduce them and call them up. So the Homer Civic Club got together and wanted to do something in recognition of C.J. Chris. They had a portrait of C.J. commissioned. And that portrait, bet you can't guess what's behind the blue curtain. That is the portrait of C.J. Chris. So I'd like to invite, if they would like to, some of the members of the Homer Civic Club to come on up here and come with C.J.
Oh, we'll bring CJ.
And let's bring C.J. to unveil.
Hey, Bob.
And C.J.'s family is here with him because they have supported him through all of this.
Stand over here.
Right here, turn around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, I can't hear very well.
Okay, we want you to turn around right here.
Around the face.
I want you to know you see a marriage between the Army and the Air Force here, but we're both in blue, so you know who won. All right.
Yeah, the Air Force.
The Air Force. Like I said, they always had clean sheets and a hot meal, and we got the hand-me-downs. That's why we had what we had for breakfast. So,
And we dropped 2 bombs, the war was over.
yeah, we were for 5 years. Okay. And without further ado, CJ, you want to put a hand on this?
What?
Can you put a hand up here? Okay. Wow.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, CJ Chris. Hands guys, get this for CJ Chris. There it is.
Thank you so much.
It even looks like
I
it.
was gonna say it looks like it.
It looks like
It looks like it.
We forgot to mention the guys that restored the Jeep. It's on the list.
Find the regional military museum, Louisiana, 2004,
The whole group was involved, but Jeanette was the starter of it.
So thank y'all. Way to go, CJ.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm gonna walk. CJ, can the Army walk with the Air Force? I'll let you walk in front of me so I'll know where to go.
Oh, I didn't see Bob.
And at the same time as CJ is moving back to his seat, I would like to point out that the Jeep was restored across the street where they were refurbing some other things in honor of you by Farron Knockham, Robert Crochet, Jimmy Truitt, and Richard Cossett. Give them a hand for an outstanding job. And you know, when we talk about CJ, some of the things you see here are his vision, but the other things are World War II historian. He spent a lot of time researching the local, what we call the Naval Air Station, which was then there. My family came to Houma because my father was in the Army and transferred to that base following World War II in the late 40s. And we just stayed. I can remember calling it the blimp base. And we rode around in a Jeep like that on the weekends, and it probably was blue, because maybe it was a Navy Jeep, it could have been the Air Force, or it could have been an Army Jeep. But when you think he researched the German submarine activity in the Gulf of Mexico, no one ever thought to do that. That's what's here in this museum. That's the history. That was the spark plug that brought to everyone in this room and everyone who will come through here in the years to come, which has brought to fruition a vision. CJ, thank you for allowing us to walk through your vision. Godspeed on your road of life. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share something Mr. CJ told me years ago. When looking at the misfortune on the girl in the front, and I said, well, she doesn't have much clothes on. And he said, well, originally, she didn't have any clothes. But when the wives saw that, they said, you got to put some clothes on that girl. So they painted a bikini on her, so now has more clothes. So he told me that a few years ago. So let me see. Yeah. Okay, so something else out. Okay, yeah. So we have refreshments in the other building over there. So audio estate, and stay, look around a while if you haven't been here. We look forward to seeing you in the future. Also, just to let you know that we're open Monday through Saturday. 10 to 4 Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Saturdays. And if any of y'all want to become members, we'll be glad to sign you up to support the museum. so we can continue to enhance, bring in new things, and make repairs of equipment like this Jeep, so we can further bring out other things that happen throughout history. So thank you for coming today, and enjoy the refreshments.